a general understanding of what this is supposed to be and how it's supposed to work, but I can't have the funding to do it. We just had a conversation about trying to fix wages, but then you take money away from me to do it. So all it is a feel-good story that all we're trying to do is tell me what I want to hear, and then you go and change it. When I submit a budget and you tell me in April or March or wherever it was that if you got 37.17 mils, that's all you get this year, then leave it there. That's what I'm banking on. I built my budget on last year's numbers so I could visualize an increase to maybe, possibly, fund things that are unexpected throughout the year. And when you change it, it kills me. Okay? How much money, everybody's got CIPs. There's people that obviously have 33% in their cash reserves if they're putting money in CIPs. I'm at 9%. Let's not get back on that conversation. I'm the only agency in the gosh darn county that's 24/7, 365, days, nights, weekends, holidays. It has to keep going that way. If something breaks, it all falls down. And I've had this discussion with you guys. All I'm asking for, and what he's saying is right. We went from 46.5 mils down to 27. You can't tell me. I can show you historically that. You're not telling me that the budget's never been cut. It's never been reduced. I can show you historically how it has. I can show you how we used to get PILT allocations in our budget. We don't get PILT allocations anymore. Okay? We used to get, what, 26%?
It was quite a bit.
26% is back in the day. It was 26%. We had state entitlement. We had PILT allocations. That doesn't happen anymore either. It's just more and more money raised on the backs of the workers of the sheriff's office with an expectation if you want to keep your job, you better make sure a jail's full. 6 pending lawsuits, I think, is what we have now. I got so many damn lawsuits, I don't even know what to think about. Every time I turn around, it's a $5,000 deductible. That's not budgeted. I just want it to work, guys. It's that simple. But I can't make it work if you guys keep doing this to me. If you're going to tell me one thing, put your feet in concrete and do it. If you're saying it's 37.17 mils or 37 mils or whatever it is I had, then leave it. Give me that so that I have an opportunity to build my agency and do things for my own staff. But I can't do it if I keep getting cut. You know, we're just going to say, go, he needs this, we're going to reduce it down. That's exactly what I said was going to happen. I already knew it. But I was trying to have faith in you guys. You guys are going to follow with your word. And when you say this is what you're going to do, then that's what I expect. That's why a public safety meal levy doesn't work, because the fact is this right here, is that no one wants to put their feet in concrete and say, we're going to give you 30 mils, 35 mils, whatever else, so I can make an idea of where to go. No one wants to give me a designated amount of mills. No one wants to designate an amount of state entitlement money, which is always an unsure, and no one wants to allocate any pill. But you want me to go out to these citizens out here and say, I need 20 mils or 15 mils. And then, lo and behold, they could give it to me, but nothing guarantees that the 30 mils or 35 mils or 37 mils is going to stay the same. That's why a mill levy is not going to pass in Broward County. True or false? You heard the same thing, Daryl. Right? You heard it. You've heard it. Mike, I'm sure you've heard it. Bill Davis said it today. Okay? I'm here. I have the largest county agency in Broward County. And I am tired of getting kicked in the shins.
Yes, and he's got the most important. And Laura Obert, I'm going to leave. You're disgraceful when you won't listen to the sheriff of Broward County. You sit there and you've been reading and looking down and going through all your paperwork. These two commissioners are looking him in the eye and listening to him. And shame on you. Yeah, you look at me, but my word don't mean anything. His does. He's why you're safe. For Christ's sake, people, do something different. Support him and his deputies. Don't make him have to make his wages from the jail. Can you imagine what he has to sleep at night? He's 24 hours a day responsible for everything. And what's in his head if he's worried about a budget? Why can't he have extra money in his budget? And you could talk to him and say, hey, do you have some extra money? Can we use it somewhere else? Why can't he have it? Why does he have to be held to a nail? Please, please, this county has got to change. Thank you guys for your support, for Christ's sake. Peter?
I do think it's important to remind folks that we did give $130,000 in PILT. And entitlement share is sitting at 127 almost, 127,000. I called for the question on the mills so that Debbie can get her work done
What was the motion?
to adopt the mills for the preliminary budget as Debbie has presented them in the determination of tax revenue mill levy limitations form.
Is there a seconder, Deb in a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
I,
All the same, motion carries.
so entitlement share is also in front of us, emailed by Debbie. And I would move we adopt that also to allow Debbie to put that into the budget for adopting the budget on the 3rd of September.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Motion been made, seconded to adopt entitlement share as presented, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All the same, motion carries.
So we have the salary matrix that Michelle updated. This is using, can you speak to that, Debbie? Did she use the industry standards as Dick suggested? Dick Larson?
Correct.
So she mailed that out, it's your colorful sheet. And I would move that we adopt that as well.
This is just the new matrix.
And Dick Larson instructed Michelle on the industry standards for just updating that annually. So that we don't have to every year hire somebody to come in, she can just plug in more of an average.
There's a second.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adopt the salary matrix as presented by Michelle with advice from Dick Larson. Any further discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. So, I guess one of my concerns is I don't know that I've seen any of these documents. Secondly, it's been over a year and a half, we had a lengthy discussion about this particular document. And there's two schools of thought. One is to adjust the salary matrix by the standard national COLA, or whatever it might be, CPI, whichever one you're using. The other school of thought is, since the whole point of that document is to basically put the ranges for officials and employees here in this county that we may hire, that should not be adjusted by whatever is nationally happening, it should be adjusted by the COLA that this county is adopting from year to year. That way, it's actually linked with our reality. And I don't know that we've ever resolved that, other than it sounds like we're using the national one. My concern is that is going to drift with the national rate of increase rather than with what the county is actually doing. At some point, we're not gonna be, that range is gonna be outside the range of our actual employment. And when you get a new hire, they're going to necessarily get hired at a higher starting rate relative to the long-term employees that have been here. So I just know that that's probably a longer discussion, and I'm just concerned that it's one of those small things that cumulatively are gonna add up to skewing our numbers for the wages for whatever our positions are.
And I think that she's using mostly the county and state figures. I don't think we're using the national.
Oh, I thought I just heard we were using the national one from Dick Larson.
Are we using national figures? 'Cause I
It's
know
the
she was
state. It's
using-
the state
she's using
mins and
state
max.
figures.
And typically, our minimum is where we are at with our COLAs each year. That's why we adjust it. Typically, that's where our minimums start. Then there's a range up to that median that we all fall based on that increase. So it gives some flexibility when people are hired to be at just what the lowest rate with the COLA would be, or based on experience, education, do they get more in that range?
And I guess I'm advocating, that sounds close to what I'm advocating, that bottom number should not be as it's adjusted, it should not exceed our COLA year by year, because otherwise we are automatically pushing new hires above, we may be pushing new hires above current employees. So maybe that's what's happening, I don't know.
No, because like, for example, I'm gonna use the sheriff's office, they just renewed their bargaining, 1403 until the COLA goes in. Well, the minimum standard in that band for someone in similar position is only 1293. So that gives flexibility within that, not to exceed not only their bargaining agreement, but a new person in another position without experience, that's their standard minimum.
Okay, so we didn't do a COLA increase last year, right? County didn't do one, and so this year we're doing 3.9. And so Commissioner Obert said that if we'd done the 2 years, it would have been 4.4, right? So we're 0.5 behind that, and that's okay, that's not a big deal. My concern is if that happens several times, that will push that number.
The state average is 2.5 every year. Whether some of us get it, some of us don't. Some counties adopt more, some adopt less. By doing that standard 2.5, the averages over time spread out. So one year you might have some lower, some you might have some next higher. Depends on the positions that open up, but it doesn't exceed where we're at in our lowest person band.
Okay, but, so the last 2 years, that would be 5%, and we're at 3.9. The year before that, I think we did a 2.1 COLA, and 2.5 would be above that. So for 3 years for the state rate, it'd be at 7.5%, and we'd be at 6%.
So we're staying
No,
behind
less than
that.
6%,
Less
5%.
than
Let me do my math, 6%.
that. And with how we've worked at the union, we can't exceed 90% of median in anybody's, moving forward when this was adopted to a pay increase.
Okay, I don't think this is the kind of thing where anybody should get in entrenched positions. I mean, if we're talking obscure math, I just, over time, I don't want that thing to overtake our wages for our current employees. That's
It's
my
just
only
a tool,
concern.
Cory.
Say again?
Just a tool. It's
Say
just
again?
a tool.
And I think knowing what we know hiring somebody, Michelle and I aren't gonna say, oh, well, you're only worth $10, so that's all we're gonna give you, because we're gonna consult the matrix and make sure people are getting the equitable wage for the position they're doing at this point in time, not 10 years ago, because when they were 10 years ago, we didn't have these standards, the minimum wage was a lot lower. So we've talked with Jim Nice, for example, is the one that's encouraged me before I started, how to work this stuff, so that we could make sure we're staying equitable and competitive as much as we can, given our limitations.
Okay,
Okay, thanks, Debbie. So we have a vote for the adoption of the salary matrix. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Okay. Market adjustments.
So we have 3 requests.
Who do we-
Michelle, Teresa, and Debbie.
Yeah. Yeah.
address.
Probably should do Debbie and Michelle together and then Teresa as a separate. We'll start with Debbie since she's here.
Okay. And what was Debbie's request was for 82 cents? 75.
87 for Debbie and 75 for Michelle? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So for a market adjustment, what we have required in the past is one, that there's money in the budget, two, justify the need, and three, that it fits within the salary matrix.
Was Michelle 75?
Mm-hmm.
I would be in support of both of these people receiving their market adjustments, because through the 3 audits that I've been through, they've been exceptionally all 3 times. They haven't had any issues with them. Michelle or Debbie has put up with a lot of stuff with the last 3 months with the union negotiations, the mishandling of those contracts by the union. I think she more than deserves a raise. And I also think the same thing of Michelle. I think she does an excellent job of what she does. She puts in a lot of time.
I'll agree, and I guess the other question, Deb, just to make sure that it doesn't trigger the Me Too clause, right?
Right.
And one thing we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen is not use the word raise.
Yep.
Because it is a market
Market
adjustment
adjustment.
that falls within our requirements for a market adjustment and can be justified by a salary matrix.
So does someone make a motion to approve Michelle and Debbie Kelly and Michelle Beebe's raises?
Market adjustments.
Market adjustment. Abandon or closed.
Yeah, there you go. Another word. Yeah, I'll move that, we make the recommended market adjustments for Debbie Kelly and Michelle Beebe.
Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve market adjustments for Debbie Kelly and Michelle Beebe. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
I definitely support this. I think their job gets more complex year by year. I think that they have to deal with the intersection of, commissioners and people like me and the sheriff that are not very shy about sharing our opinions and pushing on them. But I would say, number one, absolutely, in terms of the complexity of their job, I think it grows, and I think that this is well supported. Secondly, I think my own personal view of the biggest priorities that the county, the top 3 needs in the county for new employees, I think number 1 is a detective, number 2 is a deputy county attorney, and number 3 is another person in the finance office. So I would say if there's a way to make that happen long-term, you'd certainly have my support, but I think this is well-deserved.
Thank you. Any further comments, Tim?
Mr. Chairman, Tim Ramrell, just a real quick question. One of the things that's been raised in these budget processes and the salaries or wages has been on a market analysis. And in the past, a lot of that has come from a research done on what's going on over in Musselshell County or this other county. It's come up with them numbers. And one of the things that's been raised a lot of times in this meeting over that is comparing a budget process and an economy and I'll just use, for example, the economy in Lewis and Clark County is totally different than Broadwater County. So sometimes what we find happening here in Broadwater County is we're, again, supporting, doing a good job, giving as much as we can, but at the same token, trying to raise a threshold or a bar that's going to be equivalent to some other area that doesn't even come close to matching the economy of where we're at as taxpayers becomes an issue of concern. So sometimes we don't have any idea where that comes from as citizens, and just kind of have to wonder if we're, I'll stop there.
I have some-
Yeah.
I guess I have some thoughts on that. It's kind of like what Wynn mentioned earlier about deputies and dispatchers that are well-trained and they can go to Bozeman or Helena, I mean, for jobs. So we are in a weird cross-section of analyzing these, because on one hand, you have to look at similar counties and their tax base, right? And what we can afford. On the other hand, it's harder for us to do that, without also looking at the fact you got Bozeman and Lewis and Clark County, right? Because Debbie, with her experience and qualifications, could go get a job with the state for a lot more money, right? And there's a lot more jobs there. It's a lot easier for someone like Fergus County or Hill County, because they're a long way from another major competitor, unless they get a job at a mine or maybe a federal job, and those are few and far between. So our problem has always been traditionally, when we look at this, is we look at counties very similar to us in size, taxable value, in population, workload, employees, but you also can't ignore Gallatin County and Lewis and Clark County, because it's not very hard to drive 25 miles down the road and get a job that pays a lot more. So we've had to try to make an art out of mixing both of those groups of variables.
Understood, thank you.
Any further discussion? We'll call for a vote on the market adjustments for Debbie Kelly and Michelle Healy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Teresa Munson.
Teresa's, we have an email from Michelle that with more experience, she brings to the job a great deal of experience in management specifically, but her job description puts her in a band 5 because we don't require previous experience. So if we were to include her experience, it actually gives her enough points to move to an 8 or even a 9. 8 if you just do 3 years experience, 9 if you look at what she actually has. The reason for the job description is not to match necessarily Teresa, but the next person if there were one, because it's what you hire from. But also, it just does define who is on your staff now. So it is Teresa, even though you have a longer view than just that. So I think the first thing to realize is we're looking at a band 8 or 9, not 5. So, with that.
So Debbie, this email is based on Band 8, is that correct?
For my position, correct? Or Teresa's,
Pardon me?
which one, Teresa's or?
Teresa, yes.
Yeah, she's already at 106%, where did she go? She's already at 116% in her band of 5. To give her any increase with her added duties and changes in duties, it does bump her up. Puts her on a more equal playing field with some of the other department heads and their responsibilities. Before Michelle talked about putting her, because to put her in my band 8, the median is $26, so we can't probably exceed that. So she would even possibly be in another band of her own.
Band 8 is 26.
We have to put her to the 9, depending on the point value.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you look at the rest of band 5, you've got deputy clerk of court, fair manager, who's extremely part-time, community development director, who has no staff, the WIC nurse, which we don't have anymore, equipment operator 2, and yet the county public health nurse is in this band. It's not a good fit. She has 2 staff, she has a lot of experience. So I think the first thing we need to do is realize that she's at least a band 8, if not a band 9.
So Band-Aid works in our current budget, all right?
Yeah, I worked on her budget to include the high end,
Mhm.
And what was that?
2712.
Yep, 2712.
As compared to other nurses, that's low. But the benefit of working for public health is you're not doing nights and weekends for the most part. If there's an emergency, of course, she's called in.
So that matrix median for Band-Aid is at 26, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
To be 100%, to be at the maximum, $31. And then that's going over the 90% median that the CBA kind of
Mhm.
considers the Me Too.
Yep.
To invoke.
What would that budget support?
Hers,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm to that extreme.
Uh-huh.
I ran it to the 2712, she said minimum market adjustment. And that's after COLA, I think it adds $1.52 after COLA to her current wage. I didn't go any higher than that. Because we had to decide on the job description and then the band in order to come up with a median in the matrix. Or where she falls in the band. I don't think Michelle got there, because we didn't have anything to go with.
One question I have, the 3.9% COLA. Debbie, you've addressed COLA, these market adjustments is for past, so it's before COLA.
It's after COLA.
After COLA, okay. So the same would be with Teresa, would be after COLA. And it's not really Teresa, we're talking about the position, so the public health nurse. Our increase would be after COLA, so that would be it. There's not a 3.9 on top of that.
Right.
Any thoughts?
So thinking about it in that respect, it would be, say if there was a new person coming into this position, that would be based on if they have the experience and everything, that's where they would start. Is that right?
Mhm.
Except, we try and always start people lower than the person
Right,
who left, to exactly not do what Cory was afraid of. So, but yeah, that becomes a piece of the puzzle in deciding how much to
They start
to
within
pay
that
somebody.
band, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And when we advertise, we
Mhm.
advertise for the requirements within that band too. Yeah, you're welcome to this. And Teresa specifically requested 2712, is that what you said?
How did she phrase it? The minimum that she would like to see. She wanted more to be along the lines with other public health nurses. That was way higher than,
Yeah.
kind of like everything else around here, we're kind of lower than the other areas around us.
Right.
Because she's been offered a job, I guess, and so she's trying to justify staying. And Randy's retiring, so it's just her, she says.
Right.
She's trying to make a decide if she's gonna stay or no, or what can she do by and what can't she do by, and making those hard decisions. That was the lowest standard.
With the experience she has, she's clearly a grade 9. Grade 9 median would be the 2761, so 2712 falls below that. If we were to re-advertise tomorrow, don't want to, but I think we would advertise as an 8 because it would be less experience required, and that opens up more opportunities to find somebody. But Teresa does fall within the 9 because of her experience. But one of the criteria is not that you have another opportunity. It really has to be unemotional for us, what falls within the matrix and what falls within the criteria that we've established.
So does the current job description fall within band 8, the way it's written right now?
I don't remember that for sure. I didn't see the final, Michelle was talking about it and weighting it with you guys,
In my
but
mind,
I
I think
don't
that's
remember
right.
exactly where it fell. I think that's right, but
Yeah, I guess in my mind, that's what I'm thinking, that we'd have to change say the experience or some portion of the job description in order to go to band 9.
Her email says, you know what, I'm just gonna read the whole thing. So the points for education are already rated at the max. Because you do have to have a degree to be an LPN or an RN, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bachelor's degree. There should be some discussion on the experience required for the position. As it stands now, all it says is some experience needed. That gives the lowest number of points for that section at 3. If you were to change the job description to require 1 to 3 years experience, that increases the points for that section 7. That change would increase the overall point value to 71 instead of 67. That would change the band from 8 to 9. Median for band 8 is $26, median for band 9 is $27.61. And I think you would if you did have to do, and the job description should reflect the number of years of experience that this particular employee has, but certainly we would want to advertise for a minimum of 3, because you are talking about someone who is not only a supervisor of fellow professionals, but the responsibility that's on her shoulders for managing minimum 5 grants. Again, federal money, which talks very high standards, and then also public health.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Corey?
I think Commissioner Obert's correct in that analysis, because the other thing that comes with that experience is as different grant opportunities or different programs come through, if someone has that level of experience, it may give them the opportunity to bring in an additional service where someone who's brand new may not. So I think there's a good point to that experience differential.
this has no bearing, but I am gonna throw it out there. Teresa has also chosen to step up as deputy safety coordinator with her experience in public health, with how closely she's supposed to be working with law enforcement. I think that's huge, huge responsibility.
Is she worth more than the sheriff?
The sheriff's, what you're asking, is she worth more than us?
No,
Yeah.
I'm asking, is she
Yeah.
worth more than the sheriff, because that wage increase will put her over what the sheriff?
And your
Earns.
question is she worth more than us? And the reason for that answer is, all elected officials are tied to the clerk of quarters. So what we make essentially per hour is what Wynn makes, is what Doug makes, is what Val makes, is what Kirk makes. So we are all, the question is for all of us, not just one. Is any employee worth it? My answer is always yes. If you've got a good employee, they are well worth it. If you've got a bad employee, you've got your 80-20 rule that applies. And that is, you spend 80% of your time just managing that employee and only 20% of your time getting work done. Citizens want 100% of the work being done. So that's why a good employee is worth it. So thanks for the question. And based on that, too, I would say that it's probably well worth it to do the $27 an hour for the grade 9 or band 9. Or we can do band 8, but I would say at the maximum 26. Those two choices.
We have to change the job description first to do this.
We updated it already, it does need one more, and that's also on the agenda, is to update the job descriptions for finance officer, finance specialist, and public health nurse. And I just threw those out there for discussion, I'm more than open to discussion or
I would
debate.
be inclined to give her 75 to 80 cents, because that's basically the average of what we gave Debbie and Michelle. That would put her at, like, if you gave her 75, it would put her at 26.61.
Give her how much?
75 cents?
75 to 26.61?
Yeah. And we can make that 26.60, whatever is easiest for Debbie.
Doesn't matter either way. That formula's in the cell, so it does the math for me.
And is that moving her to that band 9 then, Mike, is that what you're thinking?
No, she'd still be in
Still
band 8.
Band 8, so if you go over 26 in band 8, Debbie, is that gonna trigger the Me Too clause?
Does that do anything?
We could, yeah.
Oh,
It
what,
puts it
do we need
over-
to move her to band 9 then?
Mhm.
If the pointing system puts her in there, then that's where she needs to be. She would be at the low end pay raise, or she just can't see the 27.61, the position, so there's that flexibility, and it gives room to grow in the next couple of years for that position. Where it tops out at band 8. So if you hired somebody, then you might have to change the job description to drop it down accordingly, depending on that experience and education required.
So you're
And what
saying
they
if
bring with them.
if we go with Michelle's email and we increase the number of years to her actual number of years' experience, then she elevates to grade 9. And then we could do, because we're well below the median, we can do your suggestion of 26.61 with a 75-cent
I agree
increase.
with that.
Yeah, that's,
And it's not manipulating anything, because she certainly does have the experience, it's over 30 years' experience. That should be reflected, and that takes her up to that grade 9.
yeah, I think that's where we go.
Okay. You want me me to put that in the form of a motion, or do you want to?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay,
I guess I move that we change Teresa Monson's job description to reflect her years of experience. Place her in band 9 with a market adjustment to 2661.
Is there a second?
yes, I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and seconded to raise the public health nurse from band 5 to a band 9 with a pay raise of 75 cents to a total of 2661. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Final motion would be to update as presented, the job descriptions for finance office, both officer and specialist.
So the finance officer, assistant, and public health.
It would be, we already updated per Daryl's motion for the public health nurse. And my motion is to update the finance officer and accounting specialist in the finance department
Okay.
as presented.
Is there a second?
There is. And then maybe a question for Debbie. So you've kind of done the analysis, Debbie, right? This works for your budget and for district court, correct?
Yeah. We worked it out, start at 13 an hour, and if they meet the end of their probationary period to $13.50, which is what Janaea was making when she left.
Okay.
So then it stays equitable, and depending on who's hired, could be shorting them. So it depends on who we get, getting them pretty cheap. But yes, it's worked into both our budgets.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the updated financial officer and accounting assistant position. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. So that's it for agenda items. Let's see, we got mail here. This is a letter from DEQ for the Montana Innovations LLC Town Pump Belgrade Convenience Store Wastewater Facility. Another one from the Department of the Interior. Federal Minerals and Future Lease Sites. Has claims here in the amount of $322.06.
I will move to pay the approved claims in the amount of $322.06.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
That's a repeat contract, so it's a renewal,
Oh, this is ours.
yeah,
So we need to sign this.
yep.
So this is the annual agreement for connection to the Montana PBS program services. Motion to approve.
I will move to approve the continuing grant with PBS.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the continuing agreement with Montana PBS. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, where do I sign?
Are you gonna allow public comment?
Is that?
Just real quick, is there a dollar amount on that agreement?
No, there's no fee.
Okay.
I think I
There
paid
will be no fee for this connection service.
Thank you.
I think this is us,
Distributor.
yeah.
Minute talk you's come.
Thank you.
Any other business to come before the commission?
I do want to share just a couple of snippets from our meeting with BOR, Bureau of Reclamation, on Canyon Ferry. So Mike was there, Daryl, and I think some of these numbers are important for us to know. The boats that come out of the silos recreation is almost half of what comes off of the entire lake. So they gave us numbers that night, 2733 out of 6,008 total. They also were willing to change the decontamination station, which I've been a broken record on, but it's a regional name, so Montana actually stood alone as the only one not using it. So I was kind of impressed by that, thankful. They are testing for mussels monthly, they have found nothing. So it looks like we will be delisted. And then they got a grant for new bridges in the wildlife management area. And the pictures are very attractive. They actually had a horse go through one of the bridges, so they're very dangerous right now. So that is a huge opportunity for our county. So I just wanted to share that. It was a really good meeting, very short. Usually we all give updates, and they didn't ask for that. It was a very short ask, so we just really listened to them
Is
that
there
night.
another one coming up here in the evening? For some reason I have a,
No, we had that was the one
there,
last Thursday at 6.
you didn't think of something different.
Did I tell you the regional director did come to the silos that night you and I were waiting? Yeah,
When
he
did
just
you get
never
there?
stopped at the store.
Oh, really? What was the
Mhm.
drive?
No idea, I didn't ask. I let Dan know that we were there waiting and that he hadn't shown, and Dan said, yeah, I guess he went out there, but he didn't stop. So, and maybe he was out there later too than you and I were.
Did you think of something different, sorry?
Any other business? I will be out of state all of next week.
Good luck.
Okay,
Our thoughts are with you.
Did you guys announce this? Kyle came down and gave that to me.
okay. So, from the Billings Clinic, it says, please join us for a community conversation about the future of healthcare for Broadwater County with representatives from Billings Clinic and the Broadwater Health Center. Tuesday, August 20th at 6 p.m., Thursday, August 22nd at 1:30 p.m., and it'll be in the 417 Broadway Ambulance Meeting Room over here, okay?
And then tomorrow night at 6.
Oh, yeah, it is. And then Thursday at 1:30?
So we will adjourn at 1:47.